Hey, what's up? Welcome everybody to this 2025 Internet Marketing Plan training. I am really excited about today. It's such an important task that we need to do. As you could see, it's mid-December. That backdrop to my screen here is downtown Chicago. It's decorated, and December is just a great time of the year to plan for next year. My name is Bill Crawford. I'll be your host. I'm the owner of Rainmaker for Contractors. Let's jump into things. Let me share my screen and walk you through some slides. Today, we're going to cover the importance of goal setting. Really hope I can convince you to sit down and work through your numbers if you haven't already and get clarity on knowing your why, which often provides great motivation when we have that clarity. And some of the X's and O's, like how many leads are you going to need to generate to hit your goal, and to be able to break that down on a monthly basis. And you'll need to tap into historical data. I hope you have some of that. And I want to help you develop a plan to take action because that's where success happens when you take action. So, in light of that, we're all busy. We all have a lot of distractions. Hopefully, this time of the year is a little bit quieter, but because it's such an important goal, I would ask you to try to tone down those distractions and really focus in here. Why you should listen to me? I have been in the basement waterproofing space for almost 30 years. I owned my own waterproofing company for 15 years, and I've been serving basement waterproofing contractors for 13 or 14 years now. I'm the host of the Rainmaker for Contractors podcast. I wrote a book on internet marketing. My agency has won awards from, I'm a coach. I coach about, I think, 28 to 30 digital marketing companies. And I've just spent a lot of time in this space, and I want to help and serve you as best I can to help you grow your company. So, what we're going to need to do is kind of just get a snapshot, and you're going to need to bring some numbers here to this training, and I'm confident that you know them, but I hope that they are not numbers that you think are accurate, but I hope they're accurate. For example, sometimes I'll ask someone their closing percentage, and I think sometimes it's a bit higher than what it actually is. And so I just want you to work with actual numbers. It's not a right and wrong thing. There's no judgment. I just want to work from where you're at and help you get to where you want to go. So we're going to be looking at how many leads you need to book, like, and how many presentations you need to give, your closing percentage, average job size, and the average monthly revenue. So the hardest part about online lead generation, no doubt you've heard that saying that says my 50% of my marketing is really effective. The only problem is that I'm not sure which 50% is working. In today's world with technology and call tracking and so many different things to track your expenses, you shouldn't have to think that way anymore. But when you think about the amount of money that needs to be spent on marketing, it is a lot of money, and it's so important that you are getting the most out of your marketing dollars. So the question is, like, how do you budget and where should I spend it? What's going to give me the best return on investment? It's a major investment. We're going to be working off the model of a revenue model of 3 million a year. And it might be your model might be lower, and I hope it's bigger. But the challenge is if you have a model, even you're trying to hit 3 million a year, let's say 10% of your expenses go to marketing. Wow, that's $300,000 that you're spending, and you sure want to maximize your return. Like, what are you gonna have to show for that at the end of the year, right? Like, that's where we're going. So you've gotta have some things in place. You need a clear plan, and then you've gotta have these reports so that you don't overspend or underspend and underperform. So that's what this is gonna be about, and I'm really excited to kind of get at a deeper level and try to nail these things down. All right, so really curious if you have goals right now and to what level. Like most people have some goals, But then I'm really curious if you have supporting goals. Do you know what those supporting goals need to be in the various different uh, departments and even categories to reach your end year revenue goal? As you know, there's a lot of numbers to look at. Now, I would argue that when there's too many numbers to look at, I think things get lost. But when there's not enough numbers to look at, you've gotta focus on those supporting numbers. Like let's take a sales rep. Yeah, we all want our sales reps to bring more volume in and close at a higher percentage. But how many of us really put the energies into those supporting goals that help our sales reps hit those numbers? And that's what we're doing for the company overall. If you haven't heard this, you have to hear this, and if you no doubt you probably have heard it, but I really want you to have it sink in. This to me is the most motivating set of statistics that you could possibly read that would push you to write down goals. Here it is. There was a Harvard study of the 1997 graduates. There's 3 groups of people for those graduates. 84% of them had no goals. 13% of them had goals, but they were not written down. And the last 3% had clear written down goals and a plan to accomplish those goals. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You fast forward the tape 20 years, and the 13% of the class who had goals were earning on average twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. Now that 13%, that's just like they had goals, but there really wasn't a plan. They just had an idea of what they wanted to do. All right, it gets better. The 3% who had clear written down goals were earning on average 10 times as much as the other 97% put together. Now that's amazing. I used to network with the various business owners, and there's probably a few times that I visited one of the owners, and he was so goal oriented. Every day in December, he would just play Zig Ziglar's goals. There's something like 12 hours of just Zig Ziglar talking on goals, and all he would do is play it. And then as he'd walk around his desk and before he sit in the chair, there's the wall right behind his chair, and he would have that one goal that he was after. Everything was about, "I'm hitting my goals," super focused, and I gotta tell you, he was one of the most successful business basement waterproofing owners that I had interacted with. Like, just super focused on goals, and it had paid off. So, I hope this is motivation for you to write your goals down. The framework that we're gonna need for our goals, yes, we need a yearly goal, but then we're going to want quarterly goals and monthly goals. And at the end of each month, I'm going to encourage you to sit down and look at your monthly report and then write 3 things down on what you need to improve in the current month so that your next month is going to be better. And if you're not like stopping and reflecting, uh, too many owners are just like running around with their fireman hat on and they have a big hose and they're just putting out fires. So you really got to stop and reflect and then write down those items you're going to improve on. I like 3 things because if there's 5 or 10 things, it's really hard to focus on too many things. And if you have 3 things, one of the things that I try to do is I try to touch each one of those things before my day, before I jump into like the daily activities where I get bombarded with stuff. And when I say touch, it might be returning an email, it might be making a phone call. If you're hiring, maybe it's posting an ad, but it's doing something to forward that goal. Sometimes if we wait to the end of the day, then those things, those projects, those tasks, those important issues, they don't really get touched. But anyway, this is the framework we're gonna shoot for. But I want to ask you before we jump into things, how would it affect you if you hit your goals in 2025? Like, what would happen? How would your life be different? Would it and here's another way to do this. If you knew that you'd have an extra $200,000 in 2025, at the end of 2025, like, what would that mean? What would you do with that? Write it down. What would you buy? Or would it just mean, well, that'd be great because I'd have less stress and more peace of mind? Would you reinvest it into the company? Um, would you be more generous with raises? Would you invest into crypto or buy real estate? What would you do? Be really good to write that down. Now, what we used to do with our sales reps and some content, I typically ran a sales, like some kind of a monthly and occasionally a quarterly contest for the sales reps. And sometimes I would require that they would determine what they want to win based on a certain dollar amount that I would set. I'd have first, second, and third place, but they'd have to take two pictures of what they wanted to win. And in order to enter into the sales contest, they would have to give me one picture. And then we encourage them to put that other picture in their car so that every time they're driving around, they see what they're after. We're so visually motivated. It's really good to keep in mind, fresh in your mind. Like, what are you after? What are you shooting for? If you do this, I can't imagine it not helping. When I do this, it always is motivating. So I try to just write this down and then keep it right in the forefront. Okay, so here's things that you need to bring to this to figure this stuff out, and then we're going to figure some other items out based on what you're bringing. First of all, you need to set your monthly goal. What I would encourage you to do is either look at last year or look at the last 2 years and take an average and then increase that by 20%. If that feels totally unrealistic, go for 15%. I like 20%. I like to shoot that growth as high as I can. On occasion, it's not very often, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but on occasion, I talk to someone and they're not really after growth. They're just after life. It's like a lifestyle business. They're just kind of wanting a steady income and like least amount of headaches that they can have. You could still run these models if that's what you're after. You're just not going to be increasing things by 20% or so. Um, so from there, you could take that. I mean, this model is 3 million, but you could take that and then divide it by 12, and now you have 250,000 you'll need per month. We're going to make an adjustment based on seasonality and historical data. Um, and then this is something that you'll need to bring. You need to know what your average sale is. Now, having worked with other people on this, sometimes this gets cloudy because they're saying, well, my counting, these one-off jobs, like we sold 3 egress windows last week or last month or something. You gotta figure out what the majority of your business is, and then you've just gotta be consistent. No matter what you do, be consistent. The exercise here is to have accurate data so that you can make improvements. And if you're changing it, it's not gonna give you accurate data, and then it doesn't make any sense. So you might wanna just take your drain tile jobs, a drain tile sump pump, the bigger jobs. I'm using 12,500. I think that's a healthy number. For some, that might be 10,000. Yeah, we have a bunch of clients that do over 20,000 on their average job. Closing percentage, I'm using a net closing percentage, uh, and I'm saying 20%. Should be in the park, certainly. And then we're gonna figure out the number of leads that need to be scheduled and the number of presentations that need to be given. Because we know not all leads that are booked actually turn into a sit or a demo or a presentation. And how I function in this world, the sit, presentation, or demo, that's when a price is given. If it's a reset, if the rep makes it halfway through and senses that the homeowner's fighting them and it's a waste of time or something, that's not a presentation. And that should not be happening unless the reps want to spend their own money on leads. And then we're going to figure out how many sales we need based on this data. Now, remember, if you fail to plan to fail, right? Like sometimes smaller waterproofing companies, they have a mindset of Well, I kind of watch the weather and I spend more money when it rains and I spend less money when it doesn't. I would encourage you to have a plan. And yes, sometimes we do make those modifications. Sometimes we have so many leads coming in, we want to turn down Google Ads, right? Sometimes we want to turn it up because we need the leads. And then there's various factors like how's your sales force looking? Can you handle the leads? Time of the year? There's all sorts of factors where we make those decisions. What I would encourage you to do for a lot of these things is stick to the game plan. Yes, you're going to look at your monthly plan. Try not to reevaluate any kind of major marketing spend, especially if you have things outside of the internet, until after a quarter. Like if you're doing mailers or shows and you've made a commitment to those, I would definitely not be changing those, on a monthly basis. Um, Follow through with your commitments. All right, so I'm gonna try to walk you through here. Now, if out of this training, this is the slightly confusing part, but I'm gonna try to explain it so it's like, even if you're like, hey, I don't math, like all I see is this glossy numbers and I don't get it, I'm gonna try to make it really easy for you. It's gonna be understandable. That's my goal anyway. All right, so I said my target revenue for the year is $3 million. All right. And simple math, you take 3 million divided by 12 and you have 250,000 per month. Now, you need to figure what this is. 12,500. I'm just plugging this in based on historical data. Um, I'm plugging this number in, 20% close, right? And let me explain this one. I think I have a slide and I'll come back. I'm gonna explain this. So we know that when you book a lead, it doesn't always turn into a presentation, right? We know that. What I've learned is that the companies that have a higher frequency of pitching one-leggers, this number here, I mean, they'll sometimes run and pitch over 90% of the leads that get booked. The companies that require both homeowners to be there, sometimes when that lead gets to be confirmed and they call the day before and want to make sure it's still a good time for Mr. and Mrs. Jones, some, sometimes those leads get rescheduled or sometimes they kick. It's just, it's what happens. So I like measuring both of these because how they get booked matters. And if there's an area of improvement that needs to happen in the company, I definitely want to know about it. So that is an area that I'm measuring. I'm using the number 80%. I'm going to go back in a slide here. So I am taking the average sale of 12,500 and I am dividing that number by my monthly goal. And that's going to tell me how many presentations that I need to give. So if I'm trying to hit 250,000 per month, I divide this by my average sale, 12,500. It's going to require that I bring in 20 sales for the month. All right. So I need 20 sales. Now, if I only close 20% of those, I need to take the number of sales that came up here and divide it by my closing percentage of 20%. That means I need to give 100 presentations in the month. All right. Now, I just covered that not all the appointments that I set turn into presentations. And I'm using a number based on historical data of 80%. So 80% of leads that I schedule or that our office schedules turn into presentations where there's a price at the end of the job and we close it or don't close it. But if I take that 100 leads that I need to get my 20 sales and I divide it by 80 or times it by 80%, I now need 125 leads booked for the month to hit my monthly goal of 250,000. I don't think that was that hard. There's two math equations here and the rest of the numbers you're bringing in. If you're like, I'm lost, please reach out to me. I'd be thrilled to walk you through and help you get your goals because I think it's really going to help you have a monthly report at the end of the month. All right. I walked you through that slide. This is just a kind of a cleaner look at this. Now we have a snapshot of leads and sales that are required to hit our goals. Now you may have a, and I hope you do. Hope you have an installed dollar goal per month and some other numbers. We're gonna hit on a few more numbers here, and I want to customize this on a monthly basis. All right, here's the adjustment. Now, this is fairly accurate of what happened when I owned my waterproofing company in Chicago. We have colder months and don't get a lot of rain in the middle of winter. And then there's certain things as a society where people get busy and they focus on different things. But as I like when I ran my monthly report, I would typically look at the last 3 years because I had really good reports. I owned a franchise, and franchises typically require you to have lots of reports, and we did. So typically, about 5% of my business came in January. In February, it was about 7%. And then I would say March through October was pretty much game on. Surprisingly, October was always one of the best months, which was great because it was a really good shot in the arm before winter set in. In my experience, August and September, typically in a year, like one of those months was off. And I don't know why it just was. I mean, August, people are focused on like school starting up and so on. And sometimes family vacations are squeezed in there. November, December are rough months. I remember one year we had a big Christmas lunch party on Christmas Eve at noon. And some reps still had to run leads, and we actually got 2 big sales after that Christmas party on a Christmas Eve, which was great because remember that month that pushed us and we hit our goal. Of course, a couple of reps were complaining, but they weren't complaining when they sold those leads. So December can be a rough month. But I'm using this historical data because I want to recreate my monthly goals based on history, knowing that in the middle of the year is going to be a lot better than December. And I want to adjust my budget and I want to adjust my goals and everything else that's associated with that based on, quite honestly, the seasonality of the business. So I'm largely taking this 3 million and I'm running it through this number here. This is a percentage of business that I do in the month. And I now have new revenue goals. It's pretty simple math. 3 million times 5% is going to give you 150,000. Now you take that, average sale, you're going to divide it by, it's going to be 150,000 divided by 12,500. That's going to give me the number of sales that I need. Then you're going to take your number of sales and divide it by the closing percentage, and that's how many presentations you need, right? So that's how you work the math on that. So you're gonna need to redo these numbers based on historical data. Now, what should your marketing budget be? And I think this is it's gonna be determined based on a variety of factors. One is your comfort level. Two is I think the more you're dialed in to your numbers, the more confident that you're gonna get your return on investment. I was very comfortable with 12%. In fact, I would sometimes dabble with 15%. I was pretty dialed into my finances. You know, I we often had owners workshops. I think we're required to do 4 a year, or you're in a room and you're with like 15 or 16 other basement waterproofing owners and you're talking for hours. And one of the topics was, which I enjoyed, was think about 2025. And if you were to add a crew, how much more profit would you bring in if you added a crew? And so you have to figure out how many more dollars per month for the year they would be bringing in. And then you have to work that through your financials. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is your general administrative expenses, for the most part, stay the same. The only there's one or two questions about whether you run insurance through G&A or you run it through your production on your finances. So when I did that math, for several years, I was kind of at a break even level where I was comfortable with my salary and we kind of ran like clockwork, although we were always kind of striving to grow. But boy, once I bumped a crew, boy, the profit margin jumps really high. And then when you add another crew on top of that, wow. Like, yeah, you're paying for a crew cab. And in Chicago, we need another compressor or jackhammer tools, of course. And then you have another crew of, 5, 6 people on a crew, and you need the leads to support that and the sales reps to sell. Um, but that infrastructure is all there. And yes, workman's compensation, like I was at 9.5% at one time. So these are all, I mean, if you start doing the math, you're going to be like, wow, this is something else. Now, that is all going to relate to how much you want to grow because you've got to spend on marketing if you're going to want to grow. So if you go here and I'm just taking 10% of the 3 million, that's going to be $300,000 in the year. And that's a lot of money, isn't it? Like, it's funny. Sometimes we're shopping for something and we're trying to figure out how to save like 20 bucks and we'll put like time and energy into it. But then $300,000, like you better get a good return of investment for that amount of money. So you're going to need to figure out what your marketing budget is. And then you're going to need to go back to that one slide that I showed you that's going to show you what percentage of your business is in for each month, and you're going to apply it. Like I think we said, January's 5%. So you're going to take $300,000 times that by 5%, and that's your marketing budget for the month. It's this column right here. You take 300,000 and for if that's your number and it's, 7% and accordingly. So you have to figure out your marketing budget per month. All right, 6 ways to hit your revenue goal. So know your why. So I talked earlier about like what would you do if, for example, you made an extra $200,000 a year? What would you do with that? And knowing your why, the number one reason why this helps you, it gives you clarity and it gives you just a clear focus where you can, that's what I want. I'm going after it. Give yourself a visual picture of it and remind yourself of it often. We forget stuff, right? So get a visual of it and keep it right in front of you, front and center, and go after your why. A second way to increase your revenue is make sure you have a website that converts a web visitor into a lead. When a new customer comes to our agency, we often look at the site and there's like one call to action and the phone number is hide and seek, like let's go to the contact page and oh okay, there it is. And yeah, mobile's not really easy to call, even though probably half the traffic is coming from that. They don't have click to call and so on. I feel the mobile version of your phone is often overlooked. Like I would encourage you right now just to pull out your phone, pull up your website, and try to think through as if you're the customer. Is that mobile version, is it easy to use? Is it, uh, easy to make a phone call? Is, like, click to call kinda stand out? Does it pop? Because I bet 50 to 70% of your web traffic to your website is coming from a mobile phone, so you better make sure that your mobile version is really on its game. Here's some things. I was speaking at a conference last month in, I think, North Carolina, and I covered this thing about web speed, and it was actually kind of fun for people to pull out their phone and during the conference, like check the speed of their website. If you go to Insights, Google Page Speed Insights, it's a free tool, and you could put your website in there and just hit go. And it will, in probably about 20 or 30 seconds, it will give you a score of 0 to 100. For mobile, we want all of our sites to be at 85 or higher. And for desktop, we want it to be 90. Desktop's always going to be faster. And, why do we want fast loading websites on both desktop and mobile? Because what do we do when we're on mobile and we have to wait? I'm not waiting. And done. There's like 20 other competitors. We can go to their site. and everyone's got ADD, everyone's got distractions and so on. So we need that information to show up right away. And we do monthly audits just to make sure that every one of our clients' website is a fast loading website. All right. Authentic images. People, they want to see who you are. They want to see the real deal. I would encourage you to take short videos of your staff, interview them, just something simple. Have them say their name and what they do and what they like about the company. You know, "Hi, my name is Melissa. I process, the finance orders here. I help answer the phone. What I like about my job is that we have great camaraderie, and we're really passionate about what we do, and we love helping people." Just something like that from each person, and then under, staff, people can kinda check out your company, and they're drawn to that. I've If you've seen me before, you know I have a lot of podcasts. I like to interview owners, and a lot of owners have put that podcast on their website. And then clients have said to them, "Hey, I'm going with your company because I heard that podcast and I really respect you as an owner. And I like how you run your business. I like how you treat your employees. And I really like how you treat your customers. Seems like you really have your act together." And when you have stuff, that's something that a lot of other companies don't have, and they're subconsciously drawn to that, to you and to your company and to your website. So that's another way to convert a web visitor to a lead to help you reach your goals. Now, online reviews, I think we'd all say they're more trustworthy when they're on Google and not your website because we can control those, but people still read them. So we like reviews on your website, and the more information you can give, like their first name or their first and last name, or add the town or a picture of that person, that brings more credibility. And I do like the 5 stars above their review, like 5 stars in yellow, so it pops. That helps and it adds credibility. Is your website, does it make it really easy to get in touch with your company? And are there calls to action, like multiple calls to action for them to call you or fill out a web form? And I'm a believer in chat. Like, more and more people just want to chat and text, and we're even putting calendars on clients' websites so people can just book right online. They don't even need to call and go through that whole thing. And take advantage of marketing automation. We do several things for our clients where we are able to have like automatic responses and touches so that customer feels valued and that we're reaching out to them. And that way things don't fall through the cracks. If you want more, if you want a resource, you can go to the Rainmaker for Contractors website. There's something called free resources. And on here, there's something called Conversion Factors for Contractors, website conversion factors. So you feel free to download that. Just out of some things that I just mentioned, is there anything you should write down to check out? "Hey, I should really check out our web speed. I wonder if, it's loading," or "I need to check out my mobile version," or "Look at the reviews on your website." There any things that you need to write down and check out? I would encourage you to write that down and take action on it. All right, the third thing is just so important. I was on a podcast yesterday, and it was kind of fun. They said, "This is gonna be drill down, like you only get 15 seconds. I'm gonna say a word and I want your feedback in 15 seconds or less." And they said, "Online reputation." And then I said, "Oh, you gotta have it. It's, more important than ever. 90% of customers look at reviews before making their purchase. Really important that you create a company culture of reviews," something like that. That's about all I got in. And yeah, I would say the same thing. And having a company culture is really the goal. It's not like, "Oh yeah, I think we got a few reviews last month." Like, it's just got to be way higher than that. I'm seeing the private equity firms, they're really dialed in. They're getting reviews on leads, and they're even sometimes training their customers to take pictures and posting them as reviews. And, sometimes they don't do such great work. And some of them do great work. But sometimes you come across companies and they have like thousands of reviews, but, you and I know that you find those negative ones and it's, like a product or something or the service. But when you have so many positive reviews, you can bury the negative ones. And people are impressed by a lot of reviews who are If you've been in sales, you've heard this expression that people can be like sheep. And when they see everyone else going a certain direction, we're like, oh, okay, I guess it's safe to go in that direction because everyone else is. And that's what happens when you have hundreds and hundreds of reviews. It's like there must be a reason why people are going with this company. They've already done my homework for me because they've checked it out. I'm sure everyone's checked them out, saved you some time and energy. And no doubt, we've all thought that way, right? I went to pick up a car, my wife's car, and we walk in, and this is what they had on their wall, a bunch of customer reviews. And I had to take a picture of it, and I just thought, "These people are dialed in." They're all over the wall. I would encourage you to do the same. And, yeah, I okay, good. I wanna get into some specifics, Are you asking for reviews on 90% of completed jobs? I'm gonna add one, when your sales rep gets, like, what we would call a non-eligible, let's say the hot water tank was leaking and they saw water and they figured it was a waterproofer. Instead of the rep getting ticked off and, "Wow, I waited all day for that lead," and it's not even a legit lead, have them turn that around and spend extra time with them, go above and beyond, and then ask for a review. It's a great way to turn a potentially negative situation into something that's positive. Reviews help boost your rankings. Um, another one I'd really encourage you to do when you move towards a company culture of customer reviews is post your monthly goal on in your office. Like, what is your goal for the month? Let's say you have 150 and you're trying to get to 165 by the end of the month. Offer your staff something. Tell them you'll buy lunch or you're gonna grill burgers and hot dogs at the end of the month if you hit the goal, or take them out to dinner, do something, but motivate and be the leader that you were meant to be and set the vision for your company and find a way to motivate your employees. I like to whenever I, start a staff meeting, I would read, customer review, and we were very aware of this Harvard study that said the number one thing that employees want is acknowledgement. They just wanna be acknowledged for what they're doing every day. You can't just be a boss that's just constantly asking. You need to thank people, you need to acknowledge them, you need to be respectful. And you could read one review, and it could be like, "Hey, Sue, you answered the phone. Great job. The lead got handed off to Drew. Drew, you ran the lead. You sold it. Awesome. Lori, you processed the order. You called. You got the loan approved. Did all the paperwork. Mike, you're in the production department. You scheduled it. Frank, you were the foreman. You did a great job. And at the end of the job, you got a review." There's like, what I say, five different people. There's five different people to acknowledge. And it's just that one review. And people love the acknowledgement. So, yeah, post things on the wall, incentivize employees, never incentivize customers. Google doesn't like that. You don't want to lose your listing. All right. I'm on number 4 here. Increase your closing percentage. Wouldn't it be great if you could move your sales reps closing percentage from, say, 20 to like even 24? Like, how many more jobs would come in? That'd be, based on my numbers, it'd be 4 more jobs, and that would be 50,000 more dollars per month, and that would be $600,000. Let's say your profit margin is 20%. 20% of 600,000 is $120,000 extra profit by moving your sales reps percentage from 20 to 24%. So I always encourage people like, hey, whatever your lot in life is at the time, be the best person you could be. And if you're a sales rep, like just invest into being the best sales rep you could be. Uh, so what are you doing to be better at that? Like, you could listen to Audible in your car and listen to sales books. That's really motivational. You can go to sales conferences and get training. There's actually going to be a really good one at the World of Concrete. Basement Health Association is going to have a great sales trainer. That would be something really good to go to. But what are you doing to increase your sales percentages? And as sales managers and owners, like, what are we doing to help sales reps close better? It would be good to run in the field and just kind of see what your sales reps are doing and try to support them and doing a better job. All right, number 5, know and track your key performance indicators. Yeah, a lot of that has to do with, 1, initially, like, setting things up so that you can have call tracking and you kinda know when I'm spending these dollars, I'm getting these leads. But another factor to tracking your KPIs is doing exactly what we're doing and putting together some kind of a monthly goal setting so that we could compare our actual numbers versus our goals and then evaluate how we did. And then at the end of the month, come up with 3 things on what we're going to do this month so that we could get better and improve. And lastly, I would say work with an agency that's an expert in this space. And I would say that would be us, with what I have 28, 29 years in this space. One of the things that I am a big believer in is working with an agency that has expertise in the niche that you're working in. There was a season that we were a generalist. I had a storefront in a fairly large suburb of Chicago, and people would walk in, and I'd have to sign a non-disclosure agreement as if they're the next Steve Jobs, and they have this great idea they don't want anyone to know about. And then I had to listen to them, and from there, you sometimes it's a new industry, so then you have to figure out what the best people are doing in that space. And then that is not super efficient because too much time is going into trying to become an expert in a totally different industry. That's different than when every team member, for example, on our team, is totally focused on basement waterproofing and foundation repair. And we get really good at just mastering our strategies and our campaigns and trying to improve them and get better and better and better and just really maximize the return on investment for our clients. So, what are your key takeaways from that and just from anything overall? I've learned this from working with so many businesses. The key to success is implement. Some of us are idea people. We like to have cool ideas and we get energized, but it's really applying this stuff. And if you need to make a change, like get the data and make a change quickly, but implement as quickly as you can and take action. So I would encourage you to write these things down. Now, at the end, just try to remember this at the end of every month, you want to be able to look at your numbers and then you want to say, here's our goals and here's what we did. And I want to identify 3 areas that we can improve. What are they? Maybe your sales reps closing percentage came in at 16 instead of 20. What's something you could do to help improve the sales reps closing percentage? Maybe you needed 120 leads booked that month and you booked 80. What happened? What are you going to do differently? Maybe the leads booked like way too many reset and something happened with communication with the customer. And too many leads are like falling through and you have too many resets and people aren't jumping on the leads right away and calling customers back. But you've got to be able to identify these things, write them down, and then there's 3 things. And then take those 3 things and like tape them on your office. And then every day you get into work and you say, what am I going to do to make a difference in those 3 areas? That's focus. That's going to really help you move your goal. And then remember, keep your why visual. Like, why are you doing this? Talking to an owner yesterday, actually, and I think that owner making so much money that he's like not as motivated because he's kind of arrived. But when you know your why, like what's really motivating you, what's giving you purpose. So, got to remember that. You got to keep it right in front of your face. At Rainmaker, what we do to help clients is we make sure they have a website that converts. We're great at local SEO and Google ads. And for some, we're doing Facebook. For others, Facebook isn't, it tends to be like a lower quality lead for less expensive. For the people that are really dialed in, that could be a good lead. Customer reviews, online reputation, absolutely critical. Nurturing those leads, making sure no leads that follow through any buckets. None of your buckets have holes in them and the water's leaking out, so to speak. You need to be present on social and be active on that. And then your tracking needs to be dialed in so that you can measure what's happening. If we could be of help and you're not already a client of ours, we'd love to do a free strategy session where I can review with you what your online presence is. I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I'll tell you what I like, I'll tell you what I don't like, and I'll share your opportunities. And I could also share work that we do, the what we've done for our clients. So we are Rainmaker for Contractors. Please reach out to us if we can be of any help. All right. Thanks for joining. Remember, take action, have everything in line, your monthly reports, and take time every month to reflect and take action and make 2025 your best year ever.